when you're heading down the home stretch and you play 3 games in 7 days, and obviously everybody's trying to get the best seed possible. To come up short, at Rutgers and then obviously on senior night versus Ohio State, you're trying to get your team playing the best basketball at this time of year. And I think we've made strides defensively. Unfortunately, we've had some inconsistencies on the offensive end to go with that. And I think especially when 2 of the 3 teams you're playing, you're playing them for a second time late in the season. 2 of them are coming off buys, so they have extra time to prepare. You've got to be able to, you've got to turn your defense into offense. You've got to be able to get to the free throw line when you go through those spells where you don't score it as well. And that'll be a focus for us as we get ready for Penn State in the Big Ten tournament, or as the first 2 rounds we're involved, the Muffet-McGraw Invitational. With Penn State and Ohio State in the possible next opponent. So, again, I think it's really important. Yesterday in a game that, obviously a senior day is full of emotion. We didn't take great care of the basketball, and I think as a group, when we've solved certain areas, we take better care of the basketball. We haven't rebounded as well. We rebounded it well yesterday. We don't take as good a care of the basketball. Got to a point in the third quarter where. Michigan had gotten it out to a sizable lead. It's very easy to then, I think, turn your attention as a team to the next game. And I didn't think our kids did that. I thought we battled, to cut into the deficit where they actually had to put 3 of their 5 starters back in at the end as we got it down into single digits. So that battle's been great all year. We just got to understand that can't be something that happens once we've dug a deficit because we're in a 1+ game situation and we're guaranteed 1 and the opportunity to play again the next day. So as that happens, obviously we play Penn State for the 3rd time. We haven't seen them since, the 3rd week in January. So I think the 2 teams have changed. Both teams have grown. Obviously, they have a tremendous scorer in Tania Page, who has a great sense of urgency playing in her last college basketball games, as I feel like Kelly and Marcia have had that same urgency for us. So we're excited to get back at it. It's a great experience for our student athletes to be able to be in Indianapolis and represent the University of Wisconsin and the tradition that is the Big Ten tournament. So I'm looking forward to it. And again, whether it's their 4th time or for a 5th-year senior like Kelly Carlos, her 1st time in the Big Ten tournament, we want to make this stay as long as possible.
Do you subscribe to the conventional wisdom that it's hard to beat a team 3 times? And what do you have to do, given the outcome of the first 2, to make sure that that's a truism?
Yeah, well, I'm very much subscribing to it since we lost the first 2. But I think in both games you saw, again, the first game was right after the Purdue game. That was one of our best games of the year. A game that they got out to a lead that with the atmosphere, I felt like it was one of the times this year I didn't call an early timeout. I tried to have our kids figure it out, and they did, and we took the lead in the second half. And then it kind of went back and forth. I thought the difference in that game in the 4th quarter is Tania Page. Again, as a senior, they got the ball in her hand. She got to the free throw line a lot in a very attacking mentality, and we didn't do the job rebounding. When we played them here, I think a similar situation. We played a little bit differently. Unfortunately, we let one of their good shooters get loose in the first half. And Tracy O'Green had 14 in the first half, didn't score in the second half. Kids did a much better job. But again, another game that is a game that is there for the taking in the 4th quarter and not being able to close. And I think we'll talk about that. I think when you play, as we've played Ohio State and Michigan, both games in February, you start to know, obviously that turnaround and what they run and everything. is familiar to the kids. I think when this is pushed a little bit further away, obviously Penn State and ourselves have played a lot of games between that time period. And to see Penn State played really well without Tania Page and won, a game. They beat Purdue, they beat Illinois, and then Saturday was her first game back. So again, a little bit different confidence building, I think, for some of their kids. And again, we've obviously had to go through not having Alex Luring for a long stretch, not having Imani at Ohio State. I look forward to that challenge. There's not going to be a lot of secrets because the two teams know each other well. And I think both games, I think our team has to see the opportunities that they let go that were right there for the taking. And I expect it to be, what a game between two teams that are, one seed apart should be in the Big Ten tournament.
You mentioned Muffet McGraw. You and Kokis coaching histories are kind of intertwined. What's your connection with her and your take on her as a coach and your friendship or relationship over the years?
Yeah, I had the fortunate experience to work my first 4 years at Notre Dame with Kokis and coming right out of the WNBA and obviously the background playing at Notre Dame. Playing in the WNBA, and then she went directly from Notre Dame to Penn State. So she's been a great friend, and it's not just been basketball. To see how she's run her program at Penn State, to see the kids that have graduated from there and the things they've been able to go on and do besides just being professional basketball players. I think one thing that always sticks out to me is while I was at Notre Dame is when Lee and I were fortunate enough to have both. I didn't have them, but Emily and Josh were both born at the same time. Kokis had her son Quentin right after Emily was born. So you again, as a basketball family, there's a lot of conversations I think when we play against each other or see each other on the road recruiting on how our families are doing, what the kids are doing, their activities. Her husband Raynell is somebody that is a law school professor, also has helped in helping people go overseas. The one thing I will tell you is Kokis Washington is one of the smartest individuals I've ever met. Graduated in 3 years at Notre Dame, has both her undergraduate and her law degree from Notre Dame. So it was great because when I was at Notre Dame, our first 2 years there, Carol Owens was the associate head coach. And so Queese was transitioning from the WNBA as a full-time assistant or into the full-time assistant role. And then after 2 years, she moved up, became the associate head coach. I was given more responsibility. So I really appreciated how much she helped me understand the women's game and the dynamics and making sure that we were making our student athletes better. And you can see that same that she's instituted not only at Penn State among her student athletes, but with her staff as well. And I've always tried to look at that. And, one thing Kokis has done, and I think Muffet's obviously been a huge influence, is she's always put the game of women's basketball ahead of the individual university. She's been president of the WBCA. She's gotten our program involved this year with a reading initiative that the whole Big Ten is doing. And that's one thing I really look up to her about is being able to see how can you impact women's basketball with sometimes when maybe doing that for all of women's basketball isn't the exact thing that helps just your program or your kids. And I've always, again, I think that's handed down kind of from Muffet and tried. And I think Kokis and Kevin and I have all had to try to have that same perspective.
I'm definitely not as smart as Kokis Washington, apparently. But
you're harder working, though.
Yeah, I don't know about that. So Imani Lewis, statistically, is one of the top 10 freshmen this program has ever had. Should she be on the Big Ten All-Freshman team?
Can't comment on anything for 11 more minutes, Brian. So I think she's having a phenomenal freshman year. And not just as one of the best freshmen in the league, as one of the best players in the league. And again, to come in and seize that opportunity, to come in and play right away, play big minutes right away, be productive, not only scoring the basketball, rebounding the basketball. I think even on games where we feel like maybe she has an impact, you look down and she has 9 rebounds. She has 11 rebounds. She has 12 points. you know, to be able to see how she's impacted that end. And I think it's been more than just her performance for our kids to see. That's what we want freshmen to know, that they're going to have that opportunity to compete, to be able to be on the floor. And again, I think knowing the second time through the league, I think is always more difficult for the freshmen, especially when you're playing those teams for the second time, because they know you so well. And if you've had a great game against them the first time, they're going to do everything in their power to take that away so you don't affect them the same way. But I think the great part is she loves watching film. She wants to get better. I don't think the numbers and everything. I think she's a kid that has always put the team ahead of individual goals. Again, yesterday, I think she was kind of embarrassed. It was her birthday on a game day, that to take any focus away from our task at hand yesterday. So, but again, it's a privilege to coach her and know her bar is so high. She can still improve so much from what she's already done. And that's exciting as a coach. And I hope she sees that the same way, that we will constantly continue to push her.